Okay, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I hope it proves useful. I want to show you how to make a race-free state assignment. This is our flow table here, and the first thing we're going to do is to do a transition diagram to show how what happens. Now, in the first row, we can go from A to D or C. So we draw those in here like that. In the second row, we can go from B to A. Or D. In the third row, we can go to either B or D. Third row, we can go to B or D. And in the fourth row, we can go to either B or A. So that's all the transition table you're going to need if you're using the multiple row method. And we're going to do the multiple row method and the shared row method side by side. So we're going to modify this transition diagram now for the shared row method, which means we have to add a few extra states. The first thing we want to do if using the shared row method is to add E, F and G, and they always go here. E, F and G. And the assignment of these letters is very, very specific. The A is 0, 0, 0. The B is 0, 0, 1. The C is 0, 1, 1. And the D is 1, 0, 1. The E is 1, 0, 0. The F is 1, 1, 1. And the G is 0, 1, 0. Now, I don't know how you're going to remember those, but you'll find a way. I mean, it's only 7. We've got A, B, C, D, which always go like that. And we've got E, F, G, which go around this triangle here to the bottom. Notice this is the bottom triangle of the rectangle. So we got A, B, C, D going that way. We got E, F, G going that way. And one of the ways to remember is that we're normally going the usual way we would go, because normally we would have, if we were just having two variables, we'd have 0, 1, 3, and then we'd have the 2 here. So the only thing that we've done now is we've replaced the 2 with a 5. Okay? Which is the same as the 1 here, except that you've added the most significant 1. So it's 0, 1, and you've got the most significant 1 here. And then between the two of these, you've got the 7. And between that and that, you've got the 4. Which then gives us the 2 between there and there. Okay? So it's always going to be like that. You're always going to do it that way. And the only thing now you have to do next is to draw your expanded flow table, which is going to have 7 rows. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's the same sort of thing, except you've gone from 4 rows. Actually no, let's do 8. Let's do 8. And there's a reason why I'm telling you to do 8, because it will make both our shared row and our multiple row, we'll do over here the multiple row one, it'll make both of them identical, which will make it easier for you to remember. You want to do it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you've got the 8 there. Alright, there we are. So over here we're doing multiple row. And on this side we're doing shared row. Okay? So what have we got? Well, we've got the same sort of setup. Here we've got the grey code along the top. And how are we going to label? How are we going to label our rows? Well, we know that in the multiple row method, it's very predictable. We've got A1, we've got A2, we've got B1, we've got B2, C1, C2, D1, and D2. Now over here we know we have A, B, C. What comes after C? Well, we're trying to arrange these in the grey code sequence. So if you go 0, 1, 3, the next one that has to come is 2. So we're going to get G here, right? Okay, study now our shared row and multiple row method. Here is the shared row and here is the multiple row. In the case of the shared row, we are just going the normal grey code sequence here, which is why the letters are organized in this fashion. Over here we always have A1, B2, sorry, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, and D1, D2. So what about the assignments over on this side? Well, the assignments on this side are very predictable too, because just like over here we start from 0, 0, 0, and then we have to go to 1, 1, 1, because that's the complement of that. And one of the objectives of the multiple row method is that we have to have complements in the duplication of the letters. So when we come to B1, we would have 0, 0, 1, and the complement of that would be 1, 1, 0. Then when we come to C1, we would have 0, 1, 1, which is the grey code, 0, 1, 1, and then we would have 1, 0, 0, and then for the D, we would have the 2 and the complement. So that's how you assign the numerical thing to the letters this way, and this one over here is just a straightforward grey code sequence. Now once you can draw that table, you know basically what you have to do, because in the case of filling in them now, in the case of the multiple row method, let's go back here to the multiple row method first. We have duplicated the rows. So basically the first two rows are going to be A, D, A, C. So let us do that. A, D, A, C, A, D, A, C. And then for the next two we are going to have A, B, B, D, A, B, B, D. Then we're going to have DCBC, DCBC, and then we're going to have DBDA, DBDA. Now, of course, we are going to have to now number them and also circle them, because clearly wherever the D is, we have to have a circle in the D row. Wherever the C is, we have to have a circle in the C row. And wherever the B is, we have to have a circle in the B row. Wherever the A is, we have to have a circle in the A row. Now what about the numbers? You notice I haven't put on the numbers yet. Well, normally you would put on 1 and 2, and you can do that for the ones that you've circled. B1, B2, C1, C2, D1, D2, so the only trick now to the multiple row method is deciding whether we are going to put the subscripts 1 and 2 in the correct place. Now, it turns out that there's a very specific rule that we have to use to decide whether we are going to have the 1 on the 1 line and the 2 on the 2 line, or whether we're going to flip them. If you draw a little Carnot map and put the states on it, you will quickly see what's going on. Okay? Obviously we have A1, then we have for the 111 A2. For the 001 we have B1, and here we have C1, and here we have D1. And then for D2 is 101 is D2, 101 is D2, 100 is C2, and 110 is B2. Now why have I told you to do that? Because every square is surrounded by 3 other squares. In other words, if I'm in the B1 square, I can move to A1, C1, or D2. If I'm, for example, in the B2 square, I can move to A2, C2, or D1. So every square I can move in 3 directions, left or right or down or up, depending on the circumstance. So let us look at the first row. The first row is the A1 row. So I can move to B1, D1, or C2. So obviously the C gets swapped in the A row. When I say get swapped, it gets swapped for 2. So in other words, for A1, I've got to write C2, because C2 is the one that's accessible from A1. But yet if I was dealing with A2, C1 would be the one that's accessible. But for the D, for example, I can write my D1 up here, I can write D1 because I can access D1 from A1. Okay? And so the only thing that gets flipped in the A row is C. Now in the B row, what gets flipped? Well, if you want to know what gets flipped in the B row, it's the D. Because the D is right under the B. So basically in the D row, I would have A1, A2, I would have B1, B2, and I would have D2, D1. Then finally for the C row, what gets flipped in the C row? Well, if you look here, you see that it's A. So in other words, I don't have an A in the C row right now, so I can simply write 1, 2, and 1, 2. So in other words, I've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, but if I had an A, I would have to have 2, 1. I would have to flip the subscripts. And then finally in the D row, it's the B that gets flipped. Now I have a B, so I got to write B2, B1 instead of B1, B2. But the A doesn't get flipped, so I write A1 and A2. So that's the secret of it, really. Everything is a 1 in the A1 row except the C. If I have C's in the A1 and A2 row, then they have to be flipped, C2 and C1. So I got the 2 and the 1 interchanged, okay? In the B row, I interchange the D. In the C row, I interchange the A. And in the D row, I interchange the B. And if I forget which I'm supposed to interchange, simply draw this little table and you will see C is the one that's flipped in the A row, D is the one that's flipped in the B row, A is the one that's flipped in the C row, and B is the one that's flipped in the D row. So hopefully now you have figured that out. So if I had to quickly summarize the rules for the multiple row method, it is duplicate the A, the B, the C and the D rows exactly as they are in the original flow table, and only flip the subscripts for the specific letter in the specific row. Each section has a different letter to flip. So that's pretty straightforward. You should be able to get that done. And remember that the secret to all of that is complement as well as gray code. So we have this A, B, C and D arranged as the gray code, and then for the 2's we have the complement of whatever the 1 is. Now let us look at the shared row method, shall we? If you look at your transition table, as you can see it there, we should be able to suitably fill in our rows. For example, in the A row, we have, as you could see in the original flow table, we have A going to D and C. So there's no reason why we don't want to put that back. We put the A where it is. Now we look at the D and C. The A can not get to the C except it goes through G. So instead of writing C here, we would have to write G, because in order for A to get to C, it's got to first go to G. So now we've got to put that, we show that here by putting an arrow at that point. Now in the case of the D, because this next one's supposed to go to D, in order to get to D, it's got to go to E first. So we put an arrow there and we write E here instead of D. Now for the B row, we have the B's already there. And the B, it goes to A here and D here. Well, the B certainly can go to A, so we can write down an A, that's not a problem. And where else does the B go? The B goes to D, and there's nothing stopping it from going to the D, so that row is the same as it was in the original flow table. Now we get to the C row, and once again we put back the C's where they are in the original table. And here it would normally go to D. It would normally go to D on the first column. But when we try to go from C to D, we butt up in F. So we write F there instead. And here now we would be trying to get to B from C. And that we can do. So last now we have to look at the D. Let us see if we can deal with the D. Can we get everything there? We've got everything in the thing. So now we're dealing with the D. As you can see, we have D there and D here. So we put the D. Now we're trying to get from the D to the B, and we can do that. So we put that there. And when we try to go from the D to the A now, we reach the E. We butt up in the E when trying to go from D to A, so we write E there. So the last thing that remains to be done now is to fill in our E, F, and G rows, which is pretty okay, because remember that we can do it here now because we can see what's happening. Can't we see what's happening? When we go from A, we're trying to get to D and we went to E. So obviously when we go to E, we're going to have to come back to D. So we write D down here in the E row. So basically all we do is we go from A to E and then from E back to D. So essentially we complete what the original table wanted us to do. It wanted us to go from A to D. So we just went from A to D via E. So we go A, E, then we come down here to E, and then we come back to D. Alright, so that's the E one. So let us now deal with the G one. Can we see what's happening with the G one here now? We see that we really wanted to get to C. We wanted to get to C in that upper right hand square, and we had to do it via G. So we went to G instead, and so now we come back to C. So all we're really doing is we are going from A to C through G. We go from A to the G row and then back to the C row, and that's shown here. A to the G row, then to the C row. Okay? So we only have a few more to fill in and we're done. There was nothing changed in the second row. In the third row, we are going to F in this here, but we really wanted to get to D. So when we come down to the F row, we have to put in a D in the F row to finally get that. And that's shown on the truth table here, from going from C to D via F. Right? C to F and D. C to F, and then from F to D. And lastly now, on the D row, the only thing that we put in was an E. That's the only thing that we had to add. But we were trying to get to A from the D. So here we are at the D and we are trying to get to A. We have to do it via the E. So when we come to the E row now, we must write an A here. Huh? So that in actual fact, we go from the D to the E row and then back to the A row. D to E to A. So everything's now finished. Everything's now finished and we can put dashes in all remaining squares. Okay, so now you understand how they're done. Good luck with your test on Tuesday.